Blog Talk Radio.
God is love, God is life, God is everything. Strength and joy, hope and peace found in Him.
Today we're talking about Mystery Babylon, the Mark of the Beast, and modern-day Babylon. Tim, what do you know about the first topic is actually the Mark of the Beast. What do you think the Mark of the Beast refers to?
You know, that's a good question. I never have really myself got a good answer to that. I mean, up till now, they read it as 666, the mark of a man, and it would be on our hand and on our forehead. So before technology was advanced, they said it was a tattoo. Now as technology advanced, everybody says it's a computer chip, an identification chip, which, you know, it seems logical in these days. Your credit card gets read without taking it out of your wallet or your purse. You walk by and it scans it, and, you know, in the name of convenience. In fact, I have a guitar. When I bought it, it has a locator chip in it, and they said, well, if it ever gets stolen, we can locate it anywhere on the planet. You know, and missing children, they sell it as that idea. So it just sounds like one of those logical things that would be real convenient until you realize it removes all your privacy. Now, there is another guy, a man named Walid Shobat, who was, by his own profession, a terrorist, a Muslim terrorist. He was an active terrorist. He got saved, and his ministry now is just explaining just how nefarious and evil the radical Muslims are.
They will use secular, peaceful Islam. That's what we have to be careful of. We have to be more careful of secular Islam than we are careful of Al-Qaeda style Islam, because it's the same Islam. Question: what is the difference between, let's see, Anwar Awlaki, okay, and Faisal?
Explain who he is, by the way.
Anwar Awlaki is a terrorist who urged Nidal Malik Hassan to kill how many Americans at Fort Hood? Okay, he's a terrorist. Osama bin Laden. What's the difference between these guys and Faisal Abdul Rauf, the man behind the Ground Zero mosque, who wanted to build a mosque by Ground Zero? He's very respected in the political arena. He's a secular, peaceful Muslim. The difference is simply the means. Faisal Abdul Rauf in the Arabic says, we want America to become what? Sharia compliant. That's not my term. He even coined the term. America must become Sharia compliant, but we must do it through stealth.
And he has several articles that it was not correctly translated in the Greek. What appears to be 666 is really not Greek, but Arabic lettering that translates in the name of Allah. And he said,
really?
What? Yeah. So there's a whole other theory. And it lines up with part of what we're going to talk about later, Mystery Babylon, is that, you know, what are they trying to push now? Sharia law and the Muslims wanting to control the government wherever they are, and definitely would love to come in here and take over. But the mark would be their symbols that they wear as devout jihadists on their forehead and on their hand, their banner. In fact, he's got some pictures of the banner that is that writing, and if you look at it, it looks like 666, but it's saying, in the name of Allah. So, pick your pick.
Yeah, I saw a big long list of things that translate into 666. The most remarkable one for me was Vicarious Spylight Day, which is the name for the Vatican, or the Pope. Vicarious Spylight with two I's, Day, D-E-I. if you add up all the values for the letters, it equals exactly 666.
Well, there you go. And, you know, as you mentioned, the Vatican, all the reading I've been doing, and, you know, it's hard. People attack Christians for slamming and being critical, but the more we look deeper into the Vatican, and it's not so much the Catholic people, because like the Masons, there's all these people at the lower level that think they're just going to church, or the Masons are just, you know, helping the poor people and doing some public work. But as you get into those deep, deep, deep upper echelons, there's some world domination plans going on. So that would certainly lead into that mark. You would, you get a one world government, a one world monetary system, and a one world religion. You're going to have a mark to demonstrate that of some side, or you're going to be on the outside.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that Catholic people aren't bad people, and I think a lot of them are totally ignorant to the concept that they're worshiping idols when they pray to the statue of the Virgin Mary and all that business. Have you heard the testimony of Sister Charlotte on YouTube?
I grew up in that Roman Catholic home as a child, knowing only the catechism, knowing only the teaching of the Roman Catholic Church. And because I loved the Lord, and because I wanted to do something for Him, I wanted to give Him my life, I didn't know of any other way for a Roman Catholic girl to give her life to God other than entering a convent. Not only are we destroyed in our bodies, many of us in our minds, and many of us, if we die in the convent, we've lost our soul. And the priest has invited me to go to the bridal chamber. You say, did you go? No, definitely not. I didn't enter the convent to be a bad woman. And here this priest is, and of course I didn't go to the bridal chamber with him. I had a strong body then. One of us would have been wounded because I would have fought until the last drop of blood. And you know, it made them very, very angry, I'll assure you. But I didn't go to the bridal chamber with him. But now I'm going to have to go to penance the next morning. And of course this will be a heavier penance because of what I've done already. And when the Mother Superior says we're going to do penance the next morning, I'm going to be initiated as a Carmelite nun. And I remember when she walked me down into that particular place, it was a dark room. I remember I lived above on the first floor until my black veil. After the black veil, they take me one story under the ground. But you know, as we walked into this room, it's dark and it's very cold. And when we walked in, we came from back there somewhere. We'd come walking toward the front, and I walked along beside the Mother Superior. And when I got near the front, I saw those little candles burning. Anywhere in the convent, you'll find the 7 candles burning. And when I came a little closer, I saw the candles, but I couldn't see anything else, and I wondered what's she going to do to me. And when I come a little closer, I saw something lying on a board there. And you know, when I came real close, then I realized, here's a little nun lying on that board. I'll call it a cooling board because it was that. And just as long as her body, and there she was, and when I could see where the candles flickered down on her face, I realized that child is dead. And oh, I wanted so much to say, how did she die? Why is she here? How long do you keep her here? But you remember, I signed away every human right. And so I can't say one word, but I stood looking. Then the Mother Superior said, you stand vigil over this dead body for 1 hour. And at the end of the hour, a little bell is tapped, and another nun will come to relieve me. And may I say, I was advised every so many minutes I have to walk out in the front of that little body and sprinkle holy water and ashes over the body and say, peace be unto you. And I did exactly what they told me to do. Oh, it was a terrible feeling. I'm not afraid of the dead. It's the live people we have to be very cautious about. And I wasn't afraid of that little dead nun, but oh, my heart ached for her. And, after the bell tapped and I realized my hour's gone, the nun who comes to relieve us comes back here somewhere. And see, of course, we walk on our tiptoes. No noise is made in the convent. And when they don't speak, they just touch you. And of course, my being down there with that little dead nun, and I was full of fear. When that girl laid a hand on my shoulder, I let out a scream, a horrible scream, from fear, just fear. And, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't break that rule on purpose, but I was scared. And immediately, of course, I had to come before the Mother Superior. And that's when I first learned to know, one of the first times, about a dungeon. They didn't tell me there were dungeons in the convent. And she put me in such a dirty, dark place with no floor in it for 3 days and nights. And I didn't get any food and any water. And I'll assure you, I didn't scream anymore. I tried so hard not to break the rules of screaming, because there is a dungeon, and I know they'll put you in it. And let me tell you right now, it's not a nice place to be. After you've been in one of those places, you'll know what it feels like. All right now, I say this before I go any farther, that popery is a masterpiece of Satan. I said it's a masterpiece of Satan, with its lying wonders and its traditions and its deception. It's a terrible thing when you know about it. And so as I come down into this room, and she took me, let me look at this little girl, and that particular, if we call it a pinch, is over. Now, the very next morning, she said again to me, Charlotte, you're going to do penance. Not the next morning, it was 3 days after, because I spent 3 days and nights in the dungeon. The next, for a fourth, next morning, whichever it was, she said, you're going to do penance. She took me down into another room, not the same room. And when we come walking down this time, I could see that big piece of wood, but I didn't know what it was. And when I came a little closer, there was a cross. It was made of heavy timber. I might say it was maybe 8 or 10 feet high, very heavy. And that cross was sitting on an incline like that. And she had me walk over here at the base of the cross, and she said, now strip your clothes off. And I took my clothes off. And then she made me down to my waistline. Then she made me drape my body over the foot of that cross. And she pulled my hands underneath and bound them to my feet. And then, you know, that's where I'm going to spill my blood. And she had not told me how, and neither could I ask how I would spill it. And she gave 2 little nuns that came with her a flagellation whip. It's, I might call it a bamboo pole. It's about this long. It's about that big around. And it has 6 straps on it about this long. And on the end of either of those straps, there's a cross piece of sharp metal. And those little nuns, either was given one of these whips. And they stood on either side of the cross. Now, at the same time, those girls began whipping my body. And I mean, when that metal hit my body, it would break the hide, of course. It would cut into the flesh, and I spilled blood, and it was running down to the floor. That's my flagellation whipping. That is where I spill my blood, as Jesus shed his upon Calvary. And of course I'm human. It wounded. It hurt. It was very painful. After the whipping is over, they don't bathe my body. They put my clothing back up on my body, and I have to go the rest of the day. When the night comes and I stand in front of my cell there, after we have to stand there to undress with our backs to each other, and then when I went in, I couldn't sleep that night. I just wasn't a bit sleepy, because I couldn't take off all my clothes. They had dried in those wounds, and it was terrible. I didn't take them off for several nights. And I'll assure you, when I came before my food, I didn't want my cup of black coffee. In the morning, we got a cup of black coffee. They serve it the tin cup, and we could have no milk or no sugar of any type in it. And we have 1 slice of bread. That's made by the nuns of the cloister. They weigh it. It weighs 4 ounces. That's all I get for breakfast. And then, of course, in the evening, I get a bowl of soup, and that's fresh vegetables cooked together. There's no seasoning in the soup whatsoever. And a half a slice of bread, and 3 times a week they give me a half a glass of skim milk. That consists of my food 365 days in the year. And I began losing weight very rapidly, I'll assure you, because I didn't have enough food to eat. I don't know the day that I went to bed without a hungry stomach. Sometimes it would be so hungry I couldn't sleep. The pain was gnawing. You can't hardly stand it. And you know, you're only going to get that 1 slice of bread the next morning. That doesn't fill you up. And of course we have to work hard all day long. And I'll assure you, those little nuns, as I covet your prayers for them, they need your prayers in more ways than one, because you'll go to bed with a full stomach tonight. And you're very comfortable right now, but I'll assure you there's not one of them that's comfortable. They're hungry, and they're sick, and they're wounded, and they're hurt, and they're heartsick and homesick, and discouraged, and worst of all, seemingly they have no hope. No hope. You and I are looking forward to the day when we're going to see Jesus. They have no hope whatsoever. And I surely hope you don't forget to pray for them. All right, that was terrible, I'll assure you. And then in a few mornings after this, the Mother Spirit's taking me back for another initiation. And when I go into the penance chamber this morning, we come from a place up here, and we're going to walk back along the, like that, clear to the back. And you know, it was quite a ways back there, and I went through part of it's a tunnel, and then I come out into a room, and I walk through that room, and when I get way back there, I see those candles burning, and I see something else. There's ropes hanging down from the ceiling, and I'm so scared. I wonder what the ropes are for, and what's she going to do? After these 2 penances, you began to have a lot of fear in your heart. And so I can't say anything, and I walk back there, and you know, I saw the ropes then real plain, what they're doing hanging down from that ceiling. Then she tells me, you go over there against the wall, about that close from the wall, and I have to stand sideways like this. Then she asked me to put up both of my thumbs, and I did. And then she pulled one rope down, and there's a metal band fastened securely, and she fastens that around the joint of my thumb. Then the other one comes down and it fastens around this thumb. And there I'm standing like this, facing the wall. And then, she comes over here to the end, and there's whatever you want to call it, she starts winding. And I start moving, and she's taking me right up in the air. And when she gets me so just my toes are on the floor, just on my tiptoes, she fastens it. And there I hang, and all the weight of my body is on my thumbs and on my toes. Not a word is said. No one speaks a word. And she walks out of that room and locks the door. If you know what it means for a key locking a door, and know that I'm strung up there like that, you'll never know unless you're a nun. And when that woman walked out, I didn't know how long I'll stay there. How long that woman will leave me there. And they didn't come to give me food. They brought me no water. And I thought, is this it? Am I going to die back here just like this? And within a few hours, you can imagine, I'm still a human being. My muscles began to scream out with the pain. I was suffering. And that woman let me hang, and nobody come near. And what good would it do for me to cry? You can spill every tear in your body. Nobody will hear you. There's no one there to care how many tears you spill. And so I just hung there. And finally, I began I felt like I couldn't stand it. I'll surely die if they don't come and get me quickly. And I felt as if I was beginning to swell. I don't know how long went by, and she opened the door one morning, and she had something for me to eat. And the water was in a pan, and it was potatoes, and those potatoes were not good to eat. They were in a pan. And there's a shelf over there on the wall that she can adjust to the height of the nun. And she pulls it up. Now, I'm not against the wall. I'm about this far from it. But to get that food, she puts it there and said, this is your food. And she walks out. Now, how am I going to get it? She didn't let my hands down. But this is what you'll learn. And you'll struggle to get it. I'm hungry. I'm so thirsty. I feel like I'm going mad. And to get it, I discovered that this hand goes high and this one will come down a little bit. And that'll keep right on going higher. As I lean, I have to reach higher with this one. This one will automatically let down. And to get that water and that food, I had to get it like the dogs and cats. And I lapped as much of it as I could because I'm so thirsty. And get those potatoes, I tried as hard as I could because I'm hungry. I'm hungry. And I got as much of it as I could naturally, but I was hungry. That's the way she fed me for a while. And I now look back at that Roman Catholic priest, and I often say, I'm sure he was a twin brother to the devil because he's full of sin. He's full of vice. He's full of corruption. And we go out there and kneel down at his knees. Now, you're a lucky girl if you get away from that man without being destroyed. Why, he's drunk. He's a beast. He's not a man. Oh, he has a holy habit on. He's an ordained Roman Catholic priest. And so I'll assure you, we don't like to go to confession, but we must go once a month. And those little girls can't help themselves, and nobody comes out into that room but the priest and I until it's all over, and then we can come back. And the next one will have to come. And I'll assure you, we don't appreciate that day. And those little girls don't know any better. They don't know anything about the planets of him. They don't know that Jesus went to Calvary and died for them. They don't know that he shed his blood for them. Those little girls know nothing about it because to me, as I repeat again, the Bible was a hidden book to every one of those little girls. And so now they can do things like this. Now, if a Roman Catholic priest comes into the convent, he may go to the Mother Superior and ask her to permit him to go into the cell where one of the nuns are. And you know that mother with her carnal mind and her carnal heart, and she's very hard and very carnal, and she is the mother many times of many illegitimate children. They belong to the priest. And you know, she'll take that priest and he's drinking. She knows it. They bring liquor in with them. Sometimes some of the nuns will drink with them, and the mother usually drinks with them. And it's really a terrible place. It is not a religious order. It does not live up to that name whatsoever. But here she brings that priest into one of our cells. Now, I wonder if you realize how serious it is. That Roman Catholic priest, he has liquor under his belt, we know that. But he has a big, strong body. He's had 3 square meals of food every day of his life. He can eat all the food that he wants. But you know, there's a little nun that may have a broken body, and she may not have very much strength. And what did you come into that cell for? For nothing other than to destroy that little nun. I often say I wish the government could walk into a convent just about the time one of those priests are let in a cell. The mother will turn a key in the lock, and you're locked in there with that priest. Now, we have no way to defend ourselves. And I often say I have had to nurse those little girls. I'm an RN. I got my nurse's training by going through the tunnel over to the hospital as I lived in an open order convent. But may I say, after that priest is taken out of there, if you could look upon the body of that little nun, she looks like something you've thrown out in a hog pen. and a half a dozen old fowls have just mauled that child's body. And this is convent life. I can understand why your priests are calling over the phone every day or two and screaming their heads off because I'm in this city giving this testimony. But may I say to you, I don't mind if they continue to scream. I don't mind what they do. I'm not one bit afraid of them. I'll continue to give this testimony. As long as God gives me strength, I'll be giving this testimony regardless of your priests or your bishops in this country. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm saying. And I'm not afraid of anybody in all of this world. I'm a child of God. And I believe God won't let anybody put a hand on me until my work is finished. And then I often say, I don't care what you do to my body after I leave this body. I'm sure I don't mind. And so I will continue to give the testimony regardless of what your priests think about it. Because I think God saved me to pull the cover off of Convent. I believe He saved me to uncloak those places that are riding under the cloak of religion. I believe that with all of my heart. I'll assure you I do. Now, if I refuse to give my body, you know we're just supposed to give our bodies voluntarily to those priests. Many times the nuns are overpowered. But if I refuse to give my body voluntarily to them, then you know he becomes very angry, and he goes immediately to the Mother Superior. Then when two carnal minds come together, they can invent things that you and we don't have enough evil in our heart to invent things like that. We don't have enough sin in our lives to even think of such terrible things. And when those two carnal minds come together, the next time, I want you to know they're all ready. Now, the Mother Superior might say to me in a day or two, we're going to do penance. Now, the penance that they'll inflict on me is something that the Mother Superior and the priest has invented, and it can be very, very cruel. They might take me down into one of the dirty dungeons, and there's no floors in those places. And you know, they have a place down there, there are rods about 3 feet long. They have a bird down into cement, and at the top of it there's a ring about this big, sticking out of the ground. They have some leather straps fastened there. And when they take me down there, they put my foot, either foot through those rings, and then they strap my ankle securely. Now, I'm standing with my feet in those rings. All right, they're going out of there. They're going to leave me locked up in that place by myself. And it's a dirty place. Well, I might stand there for 2 or 3 hours if I have strength enough in my body. But what do you think's going to happen to me then? I can't stand any longer. Sometimes we faint. Sometimes we just become exhausted and we go down. But when I go down, it flips my ankles over like that. And I can't do anything about it. I don't have what it takes for me to get up. I may have to lie in that position for 2 or 3 days and no one will come near. They won't give me a bite of food. They won't bring me one drop of water. But I must stay there. And the next thing you feel is the bugs crawling over my body and the mice running over me. And I still have to stay there. I can understand why they don't want me to uncover. They don't want the world to know these things are going on. No priest in this country wants it. And if he doesn't want the world to know it, then they better be pretty careful that nobody ever gets out of a convent after they spent a few years back there. But may I say again to you, my God is greater than all the outside forces. My God can reach his hand over into those convents, this country, any other country, and make a way for a girl to come out, and he won't have to ask the bishop to help him. He won't have to ask the priest to help him. But God can make a way for us to come out. I'll assure you that. Well, on it goes. Then sometimes the priests come and they get angry at us because we refuse to stand with them voluntarily. And you know, after all, the nuns' bodies are broken after we're there a while. And many the time, to have him strike you in the mouth is a terrible thing. I've had my front teeth knocked out. I know what it's all about. And then we get you down on the floor and then kick you in the stomach. Many of those precious little girls have babies under their hearts. And it doesn't bother a priest to kick you in the stomach with a baby under your heart. He doesn't mind. The baby's going to be killed anyway because those babies are born in the convent. Why wouldn't babies be born when you run places like this under the cloak of religion? The world thinks it's religious orders. And there are babies born in there. And most of the babies are premature. Many of them are abnormal. Very, very seldom do we ever see a normal baby. You say, Sister Charlotte, do you dare to say that? I most definitely do dare to say this. And I intend to keep on saying it. Why? I've delivered those babies with these hands. And what I've seen with my eyes and I've done with my hands, I just challenge the whole world to say it isn't true. And the only way they can ever prove it isn't true, they'll have to open, if they ever serve a summons on me and call me into court. I'll assure you this one thing. Convents are coming open. And then the world is going to know what convents really are. And they'll have to open them to vindicate my testimony, because I know what I'll do if they ever serve a summons on me. I've been before the highest laws we have in the United States. I know what I'm doing. I know what I can say, and I'm not one bit afraid to say it, because I have been a part of this. I've been connected with this system 22 years behind convent doors, and it is a terrible thing. After when that dear little nun looking forward to that day when her precious baby will be born. Most of you, dear mothers, oh, you have everything ready. The beautiful nursery, all the baby's beautiful clothes are made. Everything is lovely. You're looking forward to that precious little immortal soul is going to be born into your home. And everything is ready. And oh, I wish you could see that little nun. She's not looking forward to that. There won't ever be a blanket around his body. They'll never bathe that baby's body. But he can only live 4 or 5 hours. And then the Mother Superior will take that baby and put her fingers in its nostril and cover its mouth and snuff its little life out. And why did they build the lime pits in the convent? What is the reason for building it if it isn't to kill the baby? And that baby will be taken into the lime pit and chemical lime is put over its body, and that's the end of baby. Oh, when I think about it, that's why I try to challenge people. Pray. If you know how to pray, you know how to contact God, pray and ask God to deliver the girls from behind convent doors. In other words, pray that God will make a way for every convent in the United States to be opened and let the government go in. And when the government goes in, you won't have to worry. The convents will be opened, the nuns will be taken out, and they'll be closed up. Just as they opened the convents in Old Mexico in 1934, there are no convents in Old Mexico. Every cluster it is opened, and they found all of the corruption back there, the lime pit. If any of you are taking a vacation, go over to Old Mexico. The government owns them, they're public museums. And go through the convent, look with your own eyes, touch with your own hands, and then come home and see if you believe my testimony. It'll stay every day with blood in your veins. I mean, it'll do something to you that nothing else has ever been able to do. Go through them and look at them. Go into the dungeons. Go into the tunnels. Go through the lime pit. Look at the skulls, rooms of skulls over there, and then ask the guides of where they come from. And go and see all of the devices of torture they placed upon the bodies of the little nuns. Go into their cells and look at their beds and see for yourself. Oh, yes, you can go. It'll cost you 25 cents to go through each one of them. You look at those things and see them for yourself and then come home, and maybe it'll give you a greater burden to pray for little girls that have been enticed behind convent doors by the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church. I wonder how you would feel if this was your child. And remember, I have a mother and daddy, or had one, and they love me just as much as you love your children. And when they let me go into the convent, I'm sure my mother and daddy didn't expect these things to happen because they didn't know. They never dreamed a convent was like this. But, you know, I wonder how you'd feel if you could walk in someday and out there in this particular room. That floor is built for this purpose. There's a partition right out there. There's just a little thing they can touch. It automatically opens. And, you know, there's a deep hole underneath that floor. And this little nun has done something. I can't tell you what she's done because I wasn't there when she done it. But she's done something, and to them it's very serious. And when they bring her to this particular place. Her little hands and feet are going to be bound securely. They're going to drop her in that horrible, horrible pit. And then they're going to put the boards back down. No one will ever know. Oh, there's plenty of chemical and lime down there.
It's pretty gruesome. She goes over all the things that they do in the basements of the Vatican. Do you remember in the Da Vinci Code where they were whipping themselves with whips that had leather tassels and sharp shards of steel blades at the end of them? I forget what they call it.
That's an old practice. St. Francis of Assisi was supposed to have done that to get visions. And what they did was they followed a scripture where Paul says, I pummel my body to stay in the Spirit. And what he meant was to wrestle with this flesh to keep it in line. He doesn't mean that I whip myself and cut myself. That was the pagan followers of Jezebel that did all that.
They're called flagellation whips. Yeah, well, anyway, this nun sister, Charlotte, she was a young nun in the Catholic Church a long time ago, and she witnessed all sorts of horrible stuff. Like, apparently the priests have sex with the nuns, and then when they have babies, they actually kill the babies. And if the nuns get out of line, they take them into the basement and whip them until they're bleeding and the blood's running down their legs. And then they put them in another chamber where they have to sit and think about it for 3 days without food. Really, really horrible stuff. Anyway, she escaped from there and got out and started spewing her testimony all over the place. And I guess if you go to Mexico, you can take a tour and see all the torture devices and weird stuff they have in the Catholic churches in Mexico.
Whoa. Well, I'm not surprised. I never really thought about it before just the last couple of years, but the more I read, and again, reading a book by Tom Holt, I mean, and this guy's bibliography and documentation is just impeccable. I mean, it's just overwhelming. So you gotta take out and look at it. Just the centuries of perversity, and they've tried to rewrite their history numerous times, but there's always been somebody to document it and show where they've tried to expunge things and change it and put a nice face on it, kind of like today's government.
Yeah. How did we get off on that tangent? Oh, I know, 666 and the
mark
vicarious.
Of the beast. The thought I was having with the mark of the beast, if you're talking about torture and scars, Jesus says you'll know people by their fruit. Well, there's a pretty definite telltale sign when somebody's beat up or their wife or somebody around them is abused and beat up. That would be a pretty obvious sign of a beastly attitude to me.
You mean the nuns?
The nuns, anybody. I mean, Cain killed his brother. That's where the term comes from. So it's anybody that's an abuser and a controller, and you see the marks not so much on them, but it's on the people around them. The fruit they bear is abused, beat up people.
Yeah. I was watching this one video on the mark of the beast isn't actually a physical mark. Rather, the mark on your hand is just a symbolic term for saying what you do, your actions, because your right hand symbolizes your actions. And then the mark on your forehead symbolizes how you think or what you think. So they were saying that the mark of the beast is going to be when they implement a Sunday law where everybody is forced to worship on Sunday. The Catholic Church, Emperor Constantine,
right.
he outlawed Sabbath worship on Saturday and mandated that they worship it on Sunday. And I don't think he came right out and said, by the way, you're not actually worshiping your God, you're worshiping the sun god and the moon god, and it was a polytheistic religion.
Right.
And so to this day, most Christians go to church on Sunday. So this guy's point was the fact that it says in the Bible that the masses, even the elect, will be deceived. They were saying, well, yeah, everybody worships on Sunday still, even though they know, people by and large know that Sunday is not the true Sabbath. I think the only people that really worship on Saturdays are like the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah, and of course the Jewish.
Yeah.
Well, yes,
so
that's
anyway,
what I'm trying to say is that you get into a one-world religion, it's going to be the fruit you bear, and there again, now you have an oppressor. Hitler-esque. You will worship, we will make you, we have ways of making, it's oppression. That's the mark. And if you just go along with that oppression and say you're a Christian, you're showing yourself as a hypocrite.
Right. Okay, well, let's talk about Mystery Babylon. In Revelation 17:5, it describes Mystery Babylon as the mother of all harlots and abominations of the earth. It says she comes up out of the sea riding a beast with, I don't know how many heads and horns, but a lot of heads and horns.
10. There again,
what do you make of that?
The reading I do, and even before I started reading the stuff I am now, everybody said, that the Antichrist is coming out of Mystery Babylon. And again, they've always called it the Catholic Church. The 10 horns they equate with the 10 hills of Rome. But there again, Mystery Babylon, I think the second question is what was it? What is the spirit of Babylon, or what is the true Babylon today? How did you word it?
Oh, modern day Babylon. The original Babylon was founded by what's his name?
Nimrod.
Nimrod, right. Nimrod back in about 2000 BC.
Deep in the Catholic Church with the Masons, they are working to bring about a new world order, which would include a one world church. And it is to bring about what they call the Prince of Justice, whose real name is a three-part name: Osiris, Apollo, and Nimrod. So Nimrod was the founder of what? Babylon. So the new Babylon is this ideological new world order that they're trying to bring about. Now, Apollo is a remember we talked about the Nephilim being the prototype, or where the stories came from, a lot of Greek mythology. Well, Apollo is a short name for Apollyon, which is the god of death, the angel of death that rode through Egypt and killed everybody. That's Apollyon. That's Satan's right-hand man. So you got Apollyon, Satan's right-hand man. You got Osiris, who is the symbol of, Osiris and Isis were the mother and father of all the other gods. And you really get into that. But again, it's Satan who wants to displace God and rule man. And you got Nimrod, who was a man on earth who wanted to rule everybody and replace the method of reaching God with a physical tower. In other words, trying to do, remember I talked about trying to accomplish a spiritual goal through physical means is materialism. Well, we get that from the story of the building of the Tower of the Babel. The word for mortar on their bricks is materialism. In other words, we're going to put this thing together with our own strength, and we're going to replace God. We're going to replace the way to reach God. So now you have the whole concept of Babylon, man being his own God.
Right, so you don't think it's an actual place. Some people think that, okay, do you know the story about the prophecy of Isaiah 13 against Babylon? Said it was going to be completely destroyed, but it never was.
Isaiah 13:14. And it, Babylon, shall be a chased roe, shall be as a sheep that no man taketh up. Every man shall turn to his own people and flee, every one to his own land. Every one that is found shall be thrust through, and every one that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravaged. Behold, I will stir up the Medes, or the Iranians in today's language, against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. This is an interesting part of Scripture, because what's being described here a few years ago would have been completely unfathomable in the world that we live, that any army would do this. Civilians are typically excluded from the carnage. Army may go against army, and it may be a really ugly battle, but armies don't go against the people, don't go against the children, don't come in and just tear the fabric of a society apart. But here it says that these Medes, these Iranians, will do that. The only time that we've ever seen that is recently in places like Syria, when women and children, it doesn't matter who you are. This is done in this case as religious zealots. And I believe that's what's being spoken of here. That religious zealots who don't care about gold. They don't care about silver. They just want to come in and destroy a nation. Verse 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It was burned with fire. Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed by fire. And he says that's what it's going to be. Now, that's never taken place in history. The nation where Babylon, the old Babylon is still there today. It's not happened. This is a future thing. Verse 20. It shall never be inhabited again, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Well, I just want to understand that the inhabiting of the land will cease from generation to generation. There will be no doubt in anyone's mind when they see these events take place. Now note, the construction or layout of this chapter can be seen to be confusing. First, we see that God himself and his army will judge or destroy Babylon and will also battle the nations of the world and come in and judge them. Then in verses 17 and 18, after that's happened, it indicates that God will cause the Medes to attack Babylon. He stirs them up. He gets them mad at Babylon. And so the question is, why stir up the Iranians? If God's army is there, they've come from a far country, and they've entered in, why would the Iranians be required to come in and do something? And why would they be dealing with Babylon? Wouldn't they be also included in God's judgment of the nations and be under judgment as well? And I think the answer to that is yes, they would. I think the best way to understand this is to see it as a fight bill. You know, a fight bill, when there's going to be a big fight, a big boxing match, it's billed. And at the top of is the main event. The top of the bill. This champion is going to go against this challenger. Here's his record. Here's his record. Here's how well they've done. This is why you should come and watch this fight. This is why it should be interesting to you. But lower on the bill, down at the bottom of the bill, would be lesser fights. Less important. Secondary fights. But when you actually go and attend the event, you take your chair and you sit down and you watch the fight, you find that the fights of lesser importance would be fought first as a prelude to the main event. The Iranian attack is billed as a lesser event, but it happens before the day of the Lord. But it will happen at the beginning. So it's not Babylon's demise, it's the beginning of Babylon's demise. This is confirmed in the book of Revelation, chapters 17, 18, and 19. And here we see the same sequence. And in Revelation 17, it's going to start by identifying Babylon, a woman. Revelation 17, 4 and 5. Verse 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, the abominations of the filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. And the 10 horns, in verse 18, says, they hate her, shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. I want to stop there, because this is an event where now these 10 horns, which we will find out later, and I'll talk about it, represent 10 commanders or 10 kings. And they hate her and they destroy her. So Babylon is burned with fire at this point in Revelations. Verse 18 says, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour is so great a riches come to naught. The judgment that we're seeing, alas, is upon the woman, because she's identified with the same identifying markers. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by the sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city was like unto this great city? And then we go to Revelation 19:1. In 19:1 is Babylon has just been destroyed. Next thing. After these things, I heard a great voice of much people in heaven, saying, Hallelujah, salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Lord our God, for true are his righteousness. Is his righteousness his judgments? For he hath judged the great whore, which did corrupt the world, the earth, and her fornication and he hath avenged the blood of his servants on her hand, at her hand. And his, verse 7, his wife, the Lamb's wife, made herself ready. And to her it was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. These are the saints that are standing in heaven, rejoicing over what God had done to this woman called Babylon. Verse 14 says, And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, clean and white, and out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that he should smite the nations. Here again, this is the army from heaven smiting the nations with the Lord himself. This is the proper sequence for the destruction of end-time Babylon. An attack by 10 kings, or by the Medes and the Persians, and afterwards God's army.
So that was one of the few biblical prophecies that has not come to pass yet. And so some people think that the actual original city, Babylon, will be made into the modern-day Babylon and then hence destroyed, thereby fulfilling the prophecy outlined in Isaiah 13.
I'm not the greatest scholar. I've always understood that, what was the city of Iraq? The capital there? Baghdad. I always thought that was sort of centered right around Babylon.
Yeah. I guess they call it Babylon because when they were worshiping idols or worshiping multiple gods with Nimrod and all them, before they got it built, God judged them and confounded their languages so that they couldn't communicate with each other, and then he scattered them abroad. So the tower originally, even though it was started back in about 2000 BC, it laid in partial construction for like 1,000 years because God confounded the languages.
Right.
Sure would have been interesting to live back then and see all that happen.
Yeah. You look at some really evil people. Of course, we got no shortage of them now. I've heard several things over the years where they thought they found remnants or physical evidence of the tower, but, those kind of things popped up momentarily and then went away, so I always assumed that, somebody just thought they did, and they didn't really come up with anything. But, again, we're talking spiritual against the physical. I mean, there's going to be physical manifestations of evilness and physical locations, but in reality, Mystery Babylon and Babylon itself is an idea. Like when Jesus talks about the world, he's not talking so much about the physical world. He's talking about the systems that the world likes to work in.
Right. So Mystery Babylon. I don't know. I heard a very compelling argument that modern-day Babylon, the one with all the ships and the ports and the industry and the trade and the wealthiest country on earth with hordes and hordes of sinners and gluttonous and all these descriptive terms. And it's also called the newest nation on earth. And that is obviously the USA. Some people were saying, well, not just USA because they termed it a city. So I heard some people say, well, it's New York City because that's where the head of the United Nations is, which I have heard those are like the New World Order masterminds.
Yeah. Think of ourselves that important, but some of the European cities there's stuff in Thailand, which we think of as a backward country, that huge tower they built. some of the stuff they're building. Where's that Arabian country where everybody goes to? Not Aruba, that's an island. I can't think of the Arab country. Everybody goes there for the big vacations, and there's huge buildings. So I don't know. We like to pin it on New York. I mean, yeah, the United Nations is there, and the United Nations, again, the stuff I've been reading, the United Nations making trade deals with the Vatican. Every time they make a trade deal, what the Vatican wants to do, and will back anybody to get control of Jerusalem.
Oh.
The Vatican, did you know they backed Hitler and made a deal with him that if he won, you know Hitler aspired to be a pope? Yeah.
Hitler aspired to be a pope?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
No. And he worked with the Vatican. They actually backed him into power with a written deal that when he got Jerusalem, he would give them control over it.
Yeah. Well, the Catholic Church has a long history of committing genocide on Christians, the Inquisition and all that business.
Christians, Jews, and Muslims. And now they're trying to rewrite and, making deals of including the Muslim Bible into the Bible.
Hey, what do you know about the Jesuit priests?
Nothing specific other than when they talk about these deals, they sound like one of the oldest orders. I believe back to the prophecy Malachi, he was a Jesuit, and it's just a very, very old order, and they seem to be right at the very, very center of things. They seem to be the most powerful little sect in the whole group. But, again, my scholarship doesn't go that deep to really be too firm on that.
Isn't the newest pope a Jesuit priest? I've heard they're really big into controlling every aspect of government.
I just read a piece that they wrote, and they worked it out with Henry Kissinger, who's one of our top statesmen ever since I can remember him as a kid. He's a very old man, but they wrote several pieces starting back in the 90s, and then I just read one that was in 2011. And it said, really, the only way to bring about world peace is to centralize a one-world government, one-world church, one-world economy system. That's the only way to bring peace on earth. And they've authored that idea numerous times throughout the centuries and have really been active on that in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, the Protocols of Zion. Did you hear the story about the Protocols of Zion?
No.
Well, there was a nun who was working for a family of royalty. I don't know whether it was the Rothschilds or some other royal family. And she came across this big, huge book, and it was called the Protocols of Zion. And it outlines all the evil plans of the New World Order, in detail. And it was a huge controversy. There was a big inquisition about it. The politicians all got involved. Let me, next time I will do a little more research on that. But it implicates the Jesuits in the New World Order scheme. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that the newest pope is a Jesuit priest, which kind of lends credence to this concept that the Vatican, the new pope, is in on the whole New World Order. In fact, you know what I think? I think modern-day Babylon is basically all the higher-ups, the Illuminati and such, that are in charge of all the financial and trade aspects of society. And then that's modern-day Babylon. And then Mystery Babylon, I believe, is the Catholic Church, which is, in cahoots with Babylon. And it's a bit of a mystery. Have you ever noticed that the president is always interacting with the Pope?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's gone
Doesn't that
there.
seem a little odd?
Nope. because his goals are the same. And the thing is, when you talk about these end times, and I know you love to use the term the Great Deception, well, the Great Deception is how the Antichrist comes in, and the Antichrist is introduced and giving power and endorsed by a false prophet. Well, the prophet is of the church. The Antichrist is a physical man. So the mystery Babylon is the false prophet's cocoon or womb, and the physical Babylon, the world system, money, greed, control, is the Antichrist's birthplace and system, spiderweb, if you want.
But anyway, The Protocols of Zion is an interesting document that outlines the plan for the New World Order.
Well, you know, the ancient, there's mystical societies in Judaism that want the same thing. Again, the idea of taking over Earth is, hey, well, we're right, and we gotta control this thing. But again, from a spiritual aspect, that's never correct. God doesn't coerce or force or control anybody. He opens up a door and says, "Here you go. Here's a good way to go." And that was why they didn't see Jesus, because he didn't. Remember they delivered Barnabas because Barnabas they said he was a murderer. Well, who he murdered was Romans. He was a freedom fighter. He was an underground liberation. He was like Osama bin Laden to the Jews. They didn't like Jesus because he didn't kill anybody.
People have such a problem with Jesus. It just blows me away. With all the miracles he performed, and he heals people. And if you read the red letter edition of the Bible, everything he says is wonderful and loving, and he talks about loving your enemy and doing unto the least of one another is what you do unto me. And in other words, taking care of the people that are down and out and not kicking them in the curb. And anyway, we're about out of time. We're going to come back in about 3 minutes after this song and finish up. We appreciate your listening to the live part of our show. Return in about 3 minutes, and we will finish up our conversation.
God is love, God is life, God is everything. Strength and joy, hope and peace found in Him. God, you are love, you are life, you are everything. Please make your precious home in me. God is love, God is life, God is everything. Strength and joy, hope and peace found in Him. God, you are love, you are life, you are everything. Please make your precious home in me. When I am weak, you are strong, you're the tree life comes from. You're the owner of my soul. Now my heart's an open door. Forever be the Lord of my life. God is love, God is life, God is everything. Strength and joy, hope and peace found in Him. God, you are love, you are life, you are everything. Please make your precious home in me. When I am weak, you are strong, you're the tree life comes from. You're the owner of my soul. Now my heart's an open door. Forever be the Lord of my life. God is love. God is love. God is life. God is everything. Oh yeah. Strength and joy, hope and peace found in Him. Found in Him. God, you are love. You are life. You are everything. You are everything. Please make your precious home in me. Oh yes, Lord. Please make your precious home in me. 'Cause you are everything. Please make your precious home in me. Oh yeah.
That was David Habib Bardawal singing God is Everything. Pastor Bardawal is with the Orange County Church known as The Gate, and his website address is thegateoc.com if you want to go to his website and say hi and maybe buy his album. He's a great musician, as is Tim Williams, who's with me today. And we are talking about Mystery Babylon, modern-day Babylon, and the Mark of the Beast. And just before we finished our live section, I mentioned that I thought I heard the new Pope, Pope Francis, was a Jesuit priest. So I looked up Jesuit, and it says they're Jewish, and I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. And so I Googled it, and sure enough, the new Pope Francis is indeed a Jesuit. What do you think about that, Tim?
Well, yeah, again, I've been chasing that little thread quite a bit lately, and capable. And like I said, the book I'm reading now by Tom Holt, his documentation is just incredible, and you just can't argue with it. And tied with the Jesuits are the Masons, and they're both dedicated to bringing about a one world order. And you were talking about U.S. possibly being part of the Babylon thing. Their dedication, most of the signers of the Declaration of Independence and the fathers of our country were Masons, and they were dedicated. There's documentation to bringing about. This was supposed to be a utopian country, the new Atlantis, and again, with those three names I mentioned, bringing about the presence of Apollo, Osiris, and Nimrod. So somewhere in there, they call themselves Christians, and they somehow think Nimrod was a really cool guy who God cursed.
Yeah, well, apparently God did not think of Nimrod as a really cool guy.
No,
because he confounded his language.
Yeah.
Yeah, he foiled his plan to build his Babylonian temple. And do you know who killed Nimrod?
No, I don't.
His own uncle. Nimrod's own uncle killed him, chopped him into little pieces, and spread them all around to make him an example of what not to do. Okay, so after Nimrod's uncle killed him and spread them all into little pieces all over the place, Nimrod's widow had a child, and she claimed that child was the reincarnation of Nimrod, and therefore that idol-worshipping thing with worshipping the sun was basically resurrected. So Nimrod's uncle, all that work he did to kill Nimrod and make a big scene about it, apparently it was all in vain because the widow of Nimrod resurrected Nimrod by having a baby and saying it was a reincarnation of Nimrod.
Okay. Here's the story of Osiris and Isis. You know how the Vatican is laid out just like the Washington, D.C., the Capitol building and the Washington Monument? Did you know that?
Yeah.
The plan of the city is laid out the same as the Vatican. Okay, the dome of the Capitol building is the pregnant belly of Isis, and the monument, the obelisk, the one in the Vatican, is the phallic symbol for Osiris. Osiris was killed and chopped up into little pieces, and Isis went to find all the pieces. She found all the pieces except his phallus, and she had to build him a false one, and that's why they used that big symbol as an obelisk, for him to come back and impregnate her and bring about Apollo, the sun god. Now, does that sound somewhat like what you just said?
Yeah, very similar.
So the Masons and the Vatican are wanting to bring back Apollo, Osiris, and Nimrod, the spirit, and they call him of the just one. But we know he's a liar and a thief and a murderer. I mean, how diluted is that? Especially when you read the Bible. But see where that ties in with the Nephilim and the ancient Roman and Greek gods. I mean, they got them all messed up in there.
Yeah, you know, that's funny you mentioned reading the Bible. The other day I was talking to somebody about the Ten Commandments and how the second commandment is don't worship idols. So now their second commandment is somehow missing. And then the girl said, boy, you know a lot about biblical scripture. And I said, yeah, well, I'm pretty interested because I think right now we're living real close to probably what is the time of tribulation, Judgment Day, and I kind of want to be prepared. And she said, well, what religion are you? And I said, well, I don't really have a specific religion. I just read the Bible, and I believe that's the Word of God. And I believe that if I trust in Jesus and I accept him as my Savior, and I believe that he died for our sins on the cross and was resurrected in 3 days and then walked the earth for 40 days, taken to heaven, and that he will come back, that's all I have to believe. If you believe all that about Jesus, you're not going to accept the mark of the beast. In fact, he said that if you truly love me, you will follow my instructions. Or I forget how he said it.
Keep my commandments is what he said. In other words, walk in love and do what I do. Heal people, help people.
Yeah. Anyway, so to finish up that story, she says, oh, well, have you heard of the Latter-day Saints? And I said, oh, boy, yeah, I've heard of the Latter-day Saints. In fact, I used to live in Utah, and I told them all I was a Mormon, and they kind of looked at me funny because they call themselves Latter-day Saints to each other. Among the Latter-day Saints, they don't call each other Mormons. They call themselves, elders and Latter-day Saints and brothers. I think they call themselves brothers. Anyway, so I told her that stupid joke about me saying I was a Mormon because my last name is Moore and I'm a man and that makes me a Mormon, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't very funny. It never is. But anyway, she went on to say, you know, how great it would be to rule your own universe and be God yourself. And I was like, well, have you read commandment number 1, which says, I am the only God?
It's a mystery, and there's that mystery Babylon. It's the ideology of we can be gods. We can control this thing. I know you've read the book or heard of the Harbinger, and they quoted Isaiah at 9:11, which is the bricks have fallen, but we will rebuild. Have you got into all that by Rabbi Jonathan Cahn?
No, not much. I touched on it a little bit. Why don't you expand on it?
Well, he follows, again, Isaiah 9:11. After 9/11, people started quoting this scripture, and it said, the bricks have fallen, but we will rebuild. The sycamores are cut down, and we will replant. And the thing is, they read that as, boy, this is a good thing. We're going to rise up, and we're going to be stronger than we were before. But that's not what the scripture is saying. That was the people rebelling against God, giving them a warning of saying, you are going in the wrong direction. And some catastrophes hit that should have got their attention. They said, we're tough. we can do it in ourselves. In other words, we don't need you, God.
Right. Yeah, they failed to humble themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I do remember that now. Hey, you know what? We're out of town, and I said last time I did not want to cut this off short. We're going to run out in about 2 seconds. So, hey, Tim, it was great talking with you, and we thank you for tuning in to Vision for Humanity Radio.
God is love, God is life, God is everything. Strength and joy, hope and peace found in Him. God, you are love, you are life, you are everything. Please make your precious home in me. God is love, God is life, God is everything. Strength and joy, hope and peace found in Him. God, you are love, you are life, you are everything. Please make your precious home in me. When I am weak, you are strong, you're the tree life comes from. You're the owner of my soul. Now my heart's an open door. Forever be the Lord of my life. God is love, God is life, God is everything. Strength and joy, hope and peace found in Him. God, you are love, you are life, you are everything. Please make your precious home in me. When I am weak, you are strong, you're the tree life comes from. You're the owner of my soul. Now my heart's an open door. Forever be the Lord of my life. God is love, God is love, God is life, God is everything. Oh yeah. Strength and joy, hope and peace found in Him. Found in Him. God, you are love, you are life, you are everything. You are everything. Please make your precious home in me. Oh yes, Lord. Please make your precious home in me. 'Cause you are everything. Please make your precious home in me.